What could possibly unite a young African revolutionary and a former US president? Not politics, not ideology, not even business.
The answer, shockingly, might be hidden in something as small and invisible as strands of DNA. Picture the scene. A dimly lit conference room.
Cameras rolling, translators on standby, and a handful of world leaders gathered for what was supposed to be another routine diplomatic exchange. On one side, Ibrahim Traoré, the fiery 36-year-old leader of Burkina Faso, celebrated across Africa as the face of defiance against Western dominance. On the other side, Donald Trump, America's most polarizing president in living memory, a man whose very name divides nations. And then it happened. Traoré leaned forward, looked Trump straight in the eyes, and uttered a phrase so unsettling that the room fell into silence. He spoke not of war, not of trade, not of ideology, but of blood, of genes, of DNA. Why DNA? Why here, and why Trump? To understand the weight of that moment, we need to step back. Ibrahim Traoré rose in Africa like a storm. In 2022, he seized power in Burkina Faso, positioning himself as a symbol of African sovereignty in a world still chained by the remnants of colonialism. Unlike leaders who bowed to Western pressure, Traoré tore up agreements, kicked out French troops, and aligned with nations that shared his vision of independence. For millions of Africans, he became the embodiment of rebellion, confident, fearless, and unapologetically anti-imperialist. Now contrast this with Donald Trump. His legacy in the West is equally defiant, but in a different way. Trump built his brand on nationalism, America first, a rejection of globalist structures, alliances, and the old guard of politics. He thrived on chaos, on breaking rules, on rewriting narratives. Both men in their own domains represented disruption, yet disruption was never meant to draw them together.
So what was the link?
That's where whispers of DNA enter the story. According to insiders, Traoré had received intelligence, unverified, mysterious, yet explosive, that pointed to a genetic revelation involving Trump. Was it hidden ancestry that tied him to an unexpected lineage? Could it be medical information, buried deep, that exposed a vulnerability? Or was it something more scandalous, something so personal that Trump, the man who had faced impeachment, scandal, and ridicule, suddenly lost his composure? The cameras caught it. Just as Traoré uttered the words, Trump's face shifted. First confusion, then shock, and finally, panic. The former president, known for his bravado and unshakable confidence, abruptly raised his hand and demanded, "Cut the cameras." But why? Think about it. Trump had faced insults, investigations, even impeachment trials without flinching. He didn't silence the cameras when accused of collusion. He didn't cut the feed when mocked by world leaders. He didn't panic under the glare of scandals that would have destroyed lesser politicians. Yet here, a single phrase about DNA stripped away the mask. Why? What was so terrifying that he would rather silence the world than let the cameras keep rolling? To put it in perspective, history has shown us that hidden truths, once exposed, can shake empires. WikiLeaks once revealed secret military files that rewrote the narrative of the Iraq War. The Panama Papers exposed offshore accounts of presidents, kings, and billionaires. Snowden's leaks uncovered global surveillance that made citizens everywhere question their privacy. Each of these revelations carried the same elements: secrecy, exposure, fear. But this, Traoré's cryptic DNA remark, was different. This wasn't about documents or bank accounts. This was about identity. And identity is the one thing no politician can escape. You can deny facts, spin scandals, bury evidence. But DNA doesn't lie. It tells a story older than nations, older than empires, older than power itself. If Traoré really possessed proof of a genetic link or revelation about Trump, the implications could shatter reputations in ways we can hardly imagine. What if Trump's bloodline connected him to a people he had spent years criticizing? What if a medical truth hidden in his DNA revealed a weakness that could change how allies and enemies alike perceived his strength? Or perhaps, what if the connection wasn't just about Trump at all, but about global power, hidden histories, and the uncomfortable truth of who gets to define identity in a divided world? These questions hung in the air as Trump's demand echoed. Cut the cameras! And in that instant, the meeting transformed. It was no longer a diplomatic exchange. It was theater, mystery, danger unfolding before the world's eyes. Witnesses later recalled how aides scrambled, how translators exchanged nervous glances, and how Traoré simply leaned back in his chair, expression unreadable, as if he knew exactly what button he had pushed. For a leader like him, defying the West wasn't enough. He needed to expose its secrets, its hypocrisies, its buried truths. And if Trump, the face of Western populism, had a secret written in his very DNA, then what better symbol could Traoré unveil to the world? But here's the haunting part. We still don't know. No documents surfaced, no test results leaked, no evidence confirmed. What we have is a moment, caught on camera, of Trump's visible fear and Traoré's calculated silence. Was it bluff? Was it truth? Or was it something in between, designed to destabilize, to unsettle, to remind the powerful that their shadows are never fully hidden? One thing is certain. Trump's reaction was too real to ignore. And that brings us to a deeper truth about power. History is written in blood, and sometimes that bloodline shapes empires. For thousands of years, rulers have understood one undeniable truth. Power is not only seized on battlefields or in ballots, it is passed down in veins, carried quietly from one generation to the next. Bloodlines are more than biology. They are the invisible ink with which dynasties write their legacies, the hidden script behind the rise and fall of kingdoms. Think back to Europe's monarchs. For centuries, their authority rested on claims of pure lineage, divine right, and carefully controlled marriages. Yet behind palace walls, they worked tirelessly to hide illegitimate heirs, secret affairs, and family scandals that could collapse entire dynasties. One illegitimate child, one exposed affair, could unravel centuries of control. Kings lived and died not just by the sword, but by the whispers of whose blood they carried. Napoleon Bonaparte's lineage was fiercely debated. His enemies spread rumors that he wasn't of noble blood, hoping to undermine his legitimacy. Centuries later, historians and geneticists still argue over his DNA and medical records. His family tree, like his empire, was a battlefield where truth and myth collided. Or consider Britain's monarchy. Queen Elizabeth II's reign projected stability and tradition, yet even her family hid secrets. In 1987, it was revealed that two of the Queen Mother's nieces, cousins of Elizabeth, had been quietly institutionalized, declared dead to the public decades earlier. Why? Because in the ruthless game of monarchy, even a genetic imperfection was considered a threat to the illusion of royal perfection. Bloodlines had to appear untouchable. This obsession wasn't confined to Europe. In Africa, before colonial borders, royal lineages held immense symbolic and political power. Kings traced their ancestry through oral histories, divine figures, and legendary ancestors. Colonial powers understood this and deliberately undermined it. They installed puppet leaders, erased genealogies, and buried lineages that could unite people under indigenous monarchies. And here lies the deeper meaning behind Traoré's DNA strike. By invoking blood, he wasn't just needling Trump personally. He was reminding the world that power is fragile when tied to ancestry. That even the most powerful families may be hiding secrets written into their very genes. Now imagine this in the modern world. Unlike ancient monarchs, today's leaders cannot simply burn documents or lock cousins in castles. DNA doesn't lie. It can be swabbed from a coffee cup, tested in hours, and broadcast globally. It has become a new kind of political weapon, one that can collapse reputations overnight. Think about it. A leaked email can end a career. A hacked phone can destroy trust. A hidden bank account exposed by the Panama Papers can topple governments. But DNA is different. It is irrefutable, unchangeable, and deeply personal. It doesn't just reveal secrets, it redefines identity. Which brings us back to Trump. His brand has always been built on image. The billionaire mogul, the patriarch of a political dynasty, the father of a family name that became a global trademark. What if Traoré had access to information that threatened that image at its core? Could it be a hidden lineage that contradicted his nationalist rhetoric? Could it be a medical truth, inherited through generations, that explained moments of secrecy in his past? Or, most dangerously, could it be a tie to a bloodline Trump would rather never acknowledge, one that reshaped how the world saw his identity? The question is not simply about Trump. It is about power itself. Because if bloodlines once justified the crowns of kings, Today, they could just as easily dismantle the reputations of presidents. And in a digital world hungry for scandal, the revelation of one DNA strand could be more explosive than any WikiLeaks file or Snowden document. Which brings us to the 47 seconds of silence. The cameras cut. 47 seconds. That's all it took to ignite 1,000 questions. Why did Donald Trump, a man addicted to attention, suddenly demand darkness? Why did Ibrahim Traoré lean back, calm and unshaken, as if everything was unfolding according to plan? And most haunting of all, what secret could be so dangerous it couldn't be recorded? 47 seconds. That's less than a minute. But in politics, less than a minute can change history. Nixon's missing 18 minutes of tape destroyed his presidency. Gaddafi's censored speeches became signs of his unraveling power. China cut live feeds during protests, freezing moments in history that could never be unseen. Every missing frame, every cut broadcast has one thing in common: fear. So when Trump said, "Cut the cameras," the world didn't see confidence. It saw fear. Witnesses described the moment. The aides scrambling, the translators hesitating, the tension so heavy you could feel it through the screen. And then silence. But silence isn't empty. Silence has weight. In those 47 seconds, something was spoken. Was it a threat, a deal, a revelation about bloodlines and DNA? Or was it something bigger? Something that tied Trump, Traoré, and hidden networks of power in ways we were never meant to know. Perhaps that's the point. Maybe Traoré knew that silence could be louder than words. That by forcing Trump into visible panic, he planted seeds of doubt the cameras could never erase. And questions are dangerous. Because once people begin to wonder, what is hidden in Trump's DNA? What truth did Traoré dangle before him? Who else shares in that secret? The story is no longer controllable. Silence becomes noise. Darkness becomes a spotlight. In the end, we may never know what was said in those missing 47 seconds. But maybe we don't need to. Maybe the silence itself told us everything. That even the most powerful men can be shaken. That truth can be so dangerous it must be buried instantly. And that somewhere, in the strands of DNA and the whispers of ancestry, lies a revelation too explosive for the world to hear. And so we are left with the question that hangs like a shadow over this entire story. Was the world just denied the most powerful truth of our time?